What if I told you that the secret to unlocking your full creative potential isn't about waiting for the perfect idea or searching for endless inspiration? Sounds crazy, right? But hear me out. So many of us have been taught that creativity is this mystical, unpredictable force that strikes out of nowhere. The truth? That's a myth. If you want to tap into real, sustainable creativity, you need a practical, no-nonsense approach. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. The power of pragmatism in creativity. Trust me, this isn't your usual follow your passion fluff. Pragmatism is about doing, experimenting, and making things work, no matter how messy the process may be. It's about rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands dirty in the real world, not waiting for a moment of divine inspiration to fall into your lap. In this video, I'll show you how this approach can push your creative boundaries and give you the tools to build something truly impactful, ready to break free from the traditional, flowery ideas of creativity and get to work. Stay tuned. This is the game changer you've been waiting for. Number 1. The perfection myth. Break rules, not boundaries. Perfection is a lie. There, I said it. The pursuit of perfection has been holding you back, and it's time we talk about it. Now you might be thinking, wait, isn't perfection what we're all supposed to aim for? Sure, it sounds noble, picturing that flawless final result, that ideal version of whatever you're working on. But let me ask you this. How often does chasing perfection leave you stuck, frustrated, or feeling like you're never quite enough? If you nodded, even a little, stay with me. This is going to hit home. We've all been there. You sit down with a great idea, full of energy, and then the doubt creeps in. Is this good enough? What if they hate it? Should I tweak this just a bit more? Suddenly, hours or days go by, and instead of progress, you're staring at the same thing, paralyzed by the need to make it perfect. Sound familiar? Here's the thing. Perfection is just a trap. A shiny golden cage that tricks you into thinking you're striving for greatness while quietly stealing your creativity, your confidence, and your time. So here's the twist. Instead of chasing perfection, break some rules. No, I'm not saying go completely rogue or start cutting corners that matter. I'm talking about the self-imposed rules, the ones that whisper, this has to be flawless before anyone sees it, or you can't move forward until this part is perfect. Trust me, those rules, they're useless. What you need is freedom, not restriction. When you focus on boundaries instead of rules, you allow yourself to experiment within limits that matter, rather than getting caught in endless edits or unnecessary overthinking. Let me tell you a quick story. A friend of mine, Sarah, had this incredible idea for an online course. She spent months writing and rewriting the first module, trying to make it perfect. Meanwhile, her enthusiasm started to fade. Finally, she scrapped the script, literally tossed it in the trash, and decided to record herself speaking off the cuff. Was it perfect? Number. But it was real, and it connected with her audience in ways she never imagined. Sarah's course became a hit, not because it was flawless, but because it felt genuine. She broke her own rules and focused on the bigger picture instead of sweating every tiny detail. Here's the truth. Perfection isn't strength. Flexibility is. When you give yourself permission to let go of rigid rules, you gain the courage to move forward, to create without fear, and to actually finish what you started. You reclaim your creative space. Sure, people might have opinions, some might even criticize, but here's the beauty of it. They're reacting to something you actually put out there, not something that stayed locked in your head. This isn't about being lazy or careless. It's about being pragmatic, knowing what matters, where to focus your energy, and when to say, good enough is good enough. Because here's the secret. The world doesn't need your perfection. It needs your ideas, your passion, your voice. And the sooner you break the rules holding you back, the sooner you can make your mark. So, the next time you feel that urge to polish something to death, pause and ask yourself, is this about making it better, or just delaying the moment it gets real? Remember, breaking rules isn't weakness, it's strength. Break the rules, respect your boundaries, and let the world see your brilliance, imperfections and all. Because your space, your peace, and your creative freedom are worth so much more than chasing a myth. Number 2. Kill your darlings, save your genius. Here's a hard truth. Sometimes, the best way to create something brilliant is to destroy the things you love most. Sounds harsh, doesn't it? But trust me, this might be the most liberating advice you'll hear today. You've probably heard the phrase before, kill your darlings. It's a bit dramatic, sure, but it's a game changer. Now, before you clutch your favorite ideas in horror, let me explain. This isn't about throwing everything away. It's about learning to let go of the things you're emotionally attached to when they're no longer serving the bigger picture. We've all been there. You're working on a project, and there's that one element you're obsessed with. Maybe it's a clever line, a striking visual, or a scene you worked tirelessly on. But deep down, you know it doesn't quite fit. It's like trying to shove a puzzle piece into the wrong spot. You want it to work, but it just doesn't. And what do? We force it anyway because we're too attached to let it go. Sound familiar? Here's where the magic of killing your darlings comes in. It's not about being ruthless for the sake of it. It's about being practical. When you remove the parts that don't fit, even if you love them, you create space for something better, something that elevates the whole project instead of weighing it down. I know, it's hard. You're probably thinking, but I worked so hard on that. And you did, but sometimes the things we hold onto the tightest are the very things holding us back. Let me give you an example. A few months ago, I was editing a video project for a client. There was this one sequence I was particularly proud of, a slick transition that I thought was my best work yet. But when I showed the draft to the client, they hesitated. "It's cool," they said, "but it feels out of place with the tone of the rest of the video." I wanted to argue. I wanted to explain why it had to stay. But then I took a step back and saw what they meant. The transition, as much as I loved it, was overshadowing the message. So I cut it. And you know what? The final version was better, cleaner, more cohesive. That one decision, painful as it was, made the entire project stronger. This isn't about sacrificing your creativity, it's about sharpening it. When you let go of the pieces that don't serve the greater goal, you make room for ideas that do. And yes, it takes humility. It takes a willingness to say, this isn't about me, it's about the work. But that mindset? That's what separates good from great. Think about it. When you cling to every darling, every little thing you've created, you're not being flexible. You're being protective. And creativity thrives on flexibility, not fear. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you're brave enough to prioritize the bigger vision. It's about reclaiming your freedom as a creator, freedom from your own attachments and the fear of losing something valuable. So, the next time you find yourself clinging to an idea that isn't quite working, ask yourself, is this serving the project, or is it just serving my ego? And if it's the latter, be bold enough to let it go. Because killing your darlings isn't about destroying your work. It's about saving your genius. It's about trusting that what you build next will be even better. Something that honors your vision, your growth, and your creative courage. And that, my friend, is how you truly create something remarkable. Number 3, reverse engineering the impossible. What if I told you that the impossible isn't as intimidating as it seems? Sounds crazy, right? But here's the twist. The secret to tackling the impossible isn't brute force or some magical talent. It's about working backward. Yes, reverse engineering. It's a strategy so simple yet so wildly underutilized that once you get it, you'll start seeing possibilities everywhere. Now you might be thinking, wait, how do you even reverse engineer something that can't be done? Stick with me, and I'll show you why this works better than you'd expect. We've all faced that moment of overwhelm. You're staring at a massive goal or challenge, and it feels like standing at the base of a mountain, wondering how on earth you'll ever reach the top. Maybe it's launching a project, starting a business, or even something smaller, like learning a new skill. And the worst part? That nagging voice in your head saying, "This is too big, too complicated, maybe it's not for me." You know the one. It loves to show up right when you're about to get started. Here's where reverse engineering comes in to shut that voice down. Instead of focusing on where you are now and how far you have to go, imagine you've already achieved the goal. Picture it vividly, the end result, the success, the satisfaction. Now ask yourself, what had to happen right before this point to make it possible? And before that? And before that? It's like rewinding a movie. Step by step, you break it down into smaller, manageable pieces. Suddenly, that impossible mountain becomes a series of hills, each one easier to climb than the last. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine wanted to write a book, but every time she thought about the entire process, she'd freeze. She'd tell me, "I don't even know where to start." So I asked her to flip the script. "Imagine your book is already finished," I said. "What's the last thing you'd do before hitting publish?" She thought for a moment and said, "Probably sending it to an editor." Great. And before that? Finishing the final draft. And before that? Outlining the chapters. Within minutes, she had a clear roadmap. And guess what? That book got written, one small step at a time. Here's why this works. Our brains love clarity. The idea of tackling something big and undefined feels overwhelming, so we avoid it. But when we break it down, starting with the result and working backward, it becomes specific, actionable, and far less intimidating. It's like solving a puzzle where you already know what the final picture looks like. Now, I know this might sound overly simple. You might be thinking, sure, it works for some things, but not everything. And yes, there will always be variables you can't predict or control, but that's not the point. Reverse engineering isn't about guaranteeing perfection. It's about creating momentum. It's about turning impossible into what's next. When you approach challenges this way, something amazing happens. You stop feeling stuck. You stop seeing your goal as some distant, unattainable dream, and start treating it like a process you're already in control of. This isn't just about achieving something big. It's about reclaiming your confidence, your creativity, and your sense of possibility. So the next time you face something that feels impossible, don't let it paralyze you. Start at the end. Imagine the success, reverse engineer the steps, and work your way backward to where you are now. Because the truth is, nothing is truly impossible. It's just a matter of finding the path that makes it possible. And trust me, that path is waiting for you to discover it. Number 4, steal smart. Innovate smarter. Here's a bold thought. Every brilliant idea you've ever seen was, in some way, stolen. Shocking, right? But think about it. Innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's built on the shoulders of what came before. Now, before you get the wrong idea, I'm not saying you should copy-paste someone else's work. That's lazy. I'm saying you should steal smart. Take inspiration, remix it, and then make it uniquely yours. It's not theft, it's transformation. And trust me, this strategy is how the best creators, innovators, and thinkers operate. We've all been stuck staring at a blank page, a blank canvas, or an empty project folder, waiting for some magical lightning bolt of inspiration to strike. You know the feeling. You've scrolled through Pinterest or YouTube for hours, hoping something will click. but instead you feel more overwhelmed. And then there's that little voice in your head whispering, "Why can't I come up with something original?" But here's the thing, originality is a myth. It's the result of borrowing pieces from everywhere and putting them together in a way only you can. Here's where stealing smart comes in. Look around. What's something that resonates with you? A design, a phrase, a vibe, or even a melody? Now, ask yourself, why does this work? What's the secret sauce here? When you understand the why, you can extract the essence and apply it to your own work. You're not just copying, you're translating. You're making it fit your voice, your style, and your story. I'll give you a personal example. Back when I was working on a big project, I kept hitting a wall. Nothing felt fresh, and everything I tried seemed blah. Then, one afternoon, I stumbled across a completely unrelated project. A quirky ad campaign that had this bold, unapologetic energy. It had nothing to do with what I was working on, but something about it lit a spark. I didn't copy their visuals or their message, but I took that energy and reimagined it in my context. The result? It felt new, it felt exciting, and it worked. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but doesn't that make me unoriginal? Nope, it makes you resourceful. The truth is, every great artist, inventor, and entrepreneur borrows from somewhere. Steve Jobs famously said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." He wasn't talking about plagiarism. He was talking about taking inspiration and transforming it into something greater. This isn't just about creating, it's about freeing yourself from the pressure to be 100% original. It's about realizing that innovation isn't about starting from scratch. It's about starting from something and making it yours. It's about mixing ideas from unexpected places, combining them, and letting your unique perspective shine through. So, the next time you feel stuck, remember, don't wait for inspiration to come to you. Go out and steal it, smartly, ethically, and creatively, and then innovate smarter. Because when you take what's out there and infuse it with your own magic, you're not just making something new, you're making something that only you could create. And that's genius. Number 5. Fail now, fix later. The pragmatic prototype. Let me hit you with this. Failing fast is the secret to winning big. I know it sounds counterintuitive. Failing is something we're taught to avoid at all costs, like it's this giant flashing sign that says, "You're not good enough." But what if I told you that embracing failure early on could actually be the smartest, most efficient way to succeed? Stay with me here, because this might just change the way you approach your next big idea or project. We've all been there, spending hours, days, sometimes weeks, trying to perfect something before even showing it to anyone. You tweak one little thing, then another, convincing yourself it has to be flawless before it's ready. But then, when you finally put it out there, it doesn't work. Maybe people don't react the way you thought they would, or maybe you realize a critical mistake too late. Sound familiar? The truth is, perfection is a trap. And worse, it's a trap that keeps you stuck in the same spot, spinning your wheels and second-guessing every move. Here's where the pragmatic prototype comes in. The idea is simple. Instead of aiming for perfection, aim for progress. Create a rough version of whatever you're working on, a prototype, a draft, a test run, and get it out there as quickly as possible. Yes, it might flop. Yes, it might be messy. But guess what? That's the point. Because every failure is feedback, and every piece of feedback brings you closer to the version that will actually work. Let me share a quick story. A few months ago, I was working on a project that I thought had to be perfect before anyone saw it. I spent weeks refining every detail, but the more I worked on it, the more I doubted myself. Finally, I decided to scrap the perfect version and throw together a quick prototype. It wasn't polished, and I was a little embarrassed to share it. But when I did, the feedback I got was a goldmine. People pointed out things I hadn't even considered, and their input helped me create something far better than what I could have done on my own. That first messy draft, it was the stepping stone to success. Now, I know what you're thinking. But isn't failing risky? What if people judge me? And sure, that fear is real. But here's the thing, most people aren't sitting around waiting for you to fail. They're too busy worrying about their own stuff. Plus, showing that you're willing to take risks, learn, and improve. That's something people respect. It's how you build credibility, not lose it. This isn't just about getting things done faster. It's about freeing yourself from the fear of imperfection. It's about realizing that failure isn't the end of the road. It's part of the journey. When you adopt the mindset of fail now, fix later, you give yourself permission to try, to experiment, and to grow. You're no longer paralyzed by the pressure to get it right on the first try. Instead, you're empowered to keep moving forward, knowing that every step, even the missteps, are taking you closer to your goal. So here's my challenge to you. Whatever you're working on right now, stop obsessing over perfection. Build your prototype, put it out there, let it fail if it needs to, and then fix it, refine it, and make it better. Because the road to success isn't paved with perfect first attempts. It's built on a foundation of lessons learned through failure. Fail now, fix later, and watch how much faster you grow. Number 6. Focus on value, not validation. Let's be honest. How often do we find ourselves doing things, not because they matter to us, but because we want someone else to notice? Think about it. Maybe it's that extra effort at work, hoping your boss will finally give you a shout-out. Or maybe it's posting that perfectly curated photo, waiting for the likes to roll in. It's exhausting, isn't it? And here's the kicker. Chasing validation is like chasing your shadow. The closer you think you're getting to it, the farther it slips away. But what if I told you there's a better way to live? One where you shift your energy towards something much more fulfilling. We've all been there. You put in hours of work, go above and beyond, and then silence. No acknowledgement, no pat on the back. And it stings. It's like a little voice in your head says, "Did I not do enough?" But here's the thing, you did plenty. The problem isn't your effort, it's where your focus is. Seeking validation from others is a trap that keeps you stuck in this endless loop of trying to please. And the truth? No matter how hard you try, not everyone will see or appreciate your effort. That's just reality. So here's the shift. Stop chasing validation and start focusing on value. What does that mean? It means instead of asking, "Will this impress someone?" you ask, "Is this meaningful? Does it add value to my life, my work, or someone else's experience?" When you focus on value, you're no longer at the mercy of someone else's opinion. You're operating from a place of purpose, not performance. And trust me, it's a game changer. Let me share a personal story. A while back, I was working on a project that I poured my heart into. I kept waiting for feedback, for someone to say, "Wow, this is amazing." But the response was lukewarm at best. I was frustrated, questioning why I even bothered. Then it hit me. I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for the approval I thought I needed. So I switched gears. I asked myself, what would make me proud of this project? How can I make it something that genuinely helps or resonates with others? And when I stopped worrying about the applause and focused on creating value, everything changed. The work felt lighter, the process became enjoyable, and ironically, the recognition followed. Now, I get it. This isn't always easy. We're wired to seek validation. It's human nature to want to be seen and appreciated. But when you shift your focus, you reclaim your power. You're no longer waiting for someone else to tell you you're enough. You decide that for yourself. And here's the beauty of it. When you focus on creating value, the right people, the ones who truly matter, will see it. This isn't just about work or projects. It applies to everything. Relationships, social media, personal goals. When you let go of the need to impress and instead aim to add value, you'll find yourself more fulfilled, more grounded, and more confident. It's about showing up authentically, not performing for a scoreboard you can't control. So here's my challenge to you. The next time you find yourself chasing validation, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this for them or for the value it brings? Choose value. Choose purpose. Because when you focus on value, not validation, you stop playing small. You step into a life that's meaningful, fulfilling, and unapologetically yours. And isn't that what we're all really after? Number 7. Simplify to amplify. The power of constraints. Here's a question for you. What if having less actually made you more effective? Sounds counterintuitive, right? But hear me out. We live in a world that tells us more is always better, more tools, more options, more resources. Yet how often does having too much leave us overwhelmed, paralyzed by choice, or stuck in the endless loop of perfecting something? What if I told you that constraints, the very limits we often resist, could be the secret to amplifying your creativity, focus, and results? We've all been there, staring at a blank screen, a big project ahead, surrounded by tools, ideas, and endless possibilities, and instead of feeling empowered, we feel stuck. It's like walking into a buffet and realizing you have no idea where to start. Overwhelm creeps in, and instead of making bold moves, we freeze. Whether it's a creative project, a career decision, or even planning a party, too many choices often dilute our energy instead of sharpening it. Now, here's where things get interesting. Instead of looking at constraints as obstacles, what if we saw them as creative catalysts? The idea is simple. When you narrow your focus, you magnify your output. Think about it. Some of the greatest innovations in history came not from abundance, but from necessity. Constraints force us to think smarter, work leaner, and cut through the noise. They push us to be resourceful, to stop overthinking and start doing. Let me give you an example. A few months ago, I was tasked with creating a marketing campaign on a shoestring budget and a tight deadline. My first instinct? Panic. How can I pull this off without all the resources I need? But instead of spiraling, I flipped the script. I asked, what can I do with what I have? With no room for fancy software or elaborate plans, I focused on the essentials: clear messaging, relatable visuals, and connecting with the audience's emotions. And guess what? It worked. Not just worked, it resonated. The campaign outperformed others where I had way more resources. Why? Because the constraint forced me to strip away distractions and focus on what really mattered. This approach isn't just about work. It applies to all areas of life. Think about your wardrobe. Have you ever noticed how having fewer options often makes getting dressed easier? Or your schedule? How setting boundaries around your time can make you far more productive? Constraints create clarity. They force us to prioritize and move forward with intention. Here's the beauty of this mindset shift. It's empowering. It's not about doing less. It's about doing better. It's about recognizing that you don't need all the bells and whistles to succeed. What you need is focus. Constraints give you permission to stop chasing perfection and instead take meaningful action. They remind you that creativity thrives not in excess, but in challenge. So the next time you feel boxed in by limitations, pause. Instead of asking, why don't I have more? Ask, what can I do with what I have? Embrace the challenge and watch how the simplicity of constraints amplifies your results. Because here's the truth, sometimes less really is more. Number 8, Embrace boredom as your muse. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you let yourself be truly, unapologetically bored? Not scrolling through your phone, not flipping through channels, but just sitting with that restless, fidgety feeling of nothingness. Sounds uncomfortable, right? Maybe even pointless. But here's the kicker. Boredom might just be the creative spark you didn't know you were missing. I know it sounds odd. We're told to chase productivity, stay busy, keep moving. But what if boredom is the secret ingredient to unlocking your best ideas? You know the feeling, that awkward stillness when the Wi-Fi goes down or you're stuck waiting in line with nothing to do. Most of us panic reach for distractions. It's like we're allergic to silence. But think about it. Some of your most random, brilliant ideas probably didn't come when you were busy multitasking. They likely bubbled up when your mind was wandering, filling the empty spaces with curiosity. Here's the twist. Boredom is your brain's way of nudging you to dig deeper. It's not a void, it's fertile ground. When you strip away the noise, you create room for creativity to breathe. That itch to do something isn't just restlessness, it's your muse whispering, "What if?" And before you know it, you're piecing together a solution, a story, or an idea that had been sitting in your subconscious all along. I had one of these moments recently while staring out of a train window. No Wi-Fi, no urgent emails, just me, the hum of the train, and my thoughts. At first, it was maddening. My brain was like, shouldn't we be doing something important? But then, something magical happened. I started noticing patterns in the trees rushing by, which sparked an idea for a project I'd been stuck on for weeks. It wasn't forced or planned. It just flowed. That's the power of boredom. It clears the clutter and lets the dots connect themselves. Now, I'm not saying you should sit on your couch doing nothing forever. But what if you reframed those moments of stillness as opportunities instead of inconveniences? Instead of instinctively reaching for your phone the next time you're waiting in line, let your mind wander. Instead of filling every gap in your day with tasks, leave a little room for the unexpected. Trust me, the ideas will come. This is about reclaiming the quiet and recognizing its value. It's about giving yourself permission to pause and letting your mind surprise you. Boredom isn't the enemy, it's the catalyst for your next big breakthrough. So, embrace the awkward silence, lean into the nothingness, and let your muse meet you there. After all, the best ideas are often the ones we stumble upon when we stop looking so hard. Number 9. Create for cash, reinvent for passion. Here's a thought that might surprise you. Not every project you work on has to come from a place of deep passion. Shocking, right? We've all heard the advice, do what you love, and the money will follow. But let's be honest, sometimes you need to pay the bills first, and that's okay. The real trick isn't in forcing your passion into every paycheck. It's in finding a balance that lets you create for cash without losing sight of what lights your soul on fire. You know how it goes. Maybe you're editing videos for clients who want things you're not exactly thrilled about. Corporate montages, generic promos, or the 10th wedding highlight reel of the month. You tell yourself, this isn't why I started, this isn't my dream. And you're right, it isn't. But what if, instead of seeing these projects as distractions, you saw them as stepping stones, a means to an end? You're building your skills, funding your dreams, and learning what the market wants, all while keeping the lights on. Now, here's where the magic happens. Once you've handled the cash side of things, carve out space for the passion projects. And no, these don't have to be grand masterpieces or groundbreaking innovations. It can be as simple as experimenting with a short film idea that's been stuck in your head, creating content that speaks to your heart, or learning a new skill that excites you. The key is to approach these reinventions without pressure. This is your playground, your space to explore and rediscover what made you fall in love with your craft in the first place. I remember a time when I was stuck in a rut. Client work was steady, but it felt like I was on autopilot, churning out content that paid the bills but didn't spark joy. One day, I decided to set aside just an hour a week to work on a passion project. No deadlines, no expectations, just me and an idea. That hour became my creative recharge, and funny enough, it didn't take long for those little projects to start catching attention. People noticed the authenticity, and before I knew it, some of that passion turned into profit. This isn't about living two separate lives, one for money and one for meaning. It's about finding harmony. Creating for cash lets you survive. Reinventing for passion helps you thrive. Together, they keep you grounded and inspired. So, the next time you feel stuck in the grind, remind yourself why you started. It's not about giving up on your dreams. It's about being strategic. Use the work that pays to fuel the work that fulfills. Create for cash, reinvent for passion, and build a life that supports both. Because when you find that sweet spot, the possibilities are endless. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video gave you some fresh, practical insights into how pragmatism can supercharge your creativity. If you found this valuable, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps me reach more people like you who are ready to take a more actionable approach to their creative journey. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more content on this topic and others that challenge the traditional ways of thinking. Do you know someone who could benefit from a dose of creative realism? Share this video with them and let's spread the word. I'd also love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me about your own experiences with creativity. How has pragmatism helped you push your boundaries, or where do you think it could make a difference for you? Let's keep the conversation going. Remember, creativity isn't about waiting for that perfect moment. It's about taking action, learning from what doesn't work, and getting better every day. Keep creating, keep experimenting, and keep pushing forward. I can't wait to see what you make next. See you in the next video.